Welcome to the European Sport Congress podcast, where we discuss sport projects and priorities with amazing guests who are leading sport innovation. If you like this content, make sure to subscribe and to follow the European Sport Congress on social media. Joining us today, we have Samir Janmohamed, Assistant to the Director General of the International University Sports Federation, also known as FISU. Samir studied kinesiology and sport administration, and during his professional path, he organized FIFA's Women's World Cup in Canada in 2015, worked for the Richmond Olympic Oval, was a consultant for the Olympic Museum program, and since 2018, when he joined FISU, he has had many roles from media assistant to project manager. Samir, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. It's a warm one out there. We're in the middle of a heat wave, even here in Switzerland at our headquarters. But it's great to be here. We're also in the middle of organizing a big event, FISA World University Games. But always happy to make time for the European Sport Congress.
I'm very happy to have you here because basically you have experience in many different roles when it comes to sport managing. So, from sport event organization to managing communities, handling the strategy for sport communication, basically all the topics that we talk about in this podcast. To start with, I want to start with one of my favorite topics, which is communities. You have always been involved in managing communities. For instance, at the Richmond Olympic Oval, you were in charge of the Community Legacy Program. And now on FISU, it's basically a huge community of university sports.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to build and manage communities in the sport world?
I think in general, I mean, without sport, it's already important. And you add sport as that kind of cultural element to bring communities together. I think it's really important. I will say, having been involved in so many different international events, having been a student, a volunteer, a staff member, and all of that, I think it's really interesting to see how not only communities are involved, but how the event can shape the community and how the community can shape the event. It's the little things. I mean, from how volunteers act to how the torch is designed to how the medals are designed. I think it's a key component of any sports event, and really bringing that community together. Obviously, we're working with the university community, which is very special. But I think involving the community gives a sense of belonging. And with that being said, as humans, I think we want to feel that kind of social connection, kind of the social legacy, the connection to anything and everything. And through my experience, it's been predominantly sports that's done this, and I've had great experience with sports, being feeling that sense of belonging in sport, and I mean I think it's super important for other people to feel the same.
That's a great view of it because basically we use communities to address individual needs, but also for individuals to have this sense of belonging. So it's a
Absolutely.
win-win. It's a win-win situation. That's amazing. So managing a community, well, being part of it is one thing, but managing a community, it's a different thing. And it all starts with making connections, which, by the way, the UEC will be great for. But then we have to give something to the people. We have to offer them something. Do you have any tips on how to strategize this community management?
I think it comes down to the different stakeholders. There's that, and there's also creating that emotional connection. I think the emotional connection is more. I will say more so important, because if you create that, you have your favorite movie, right? And it's your favorite movie for a reason. It made you feel something inside. Really, that's for me. That's what sport has done for me in general, and those are the experiences I remember. So I really think evoking that emotion and that kind of thing, it really helps. I mean, there's that, and also looking at your stakeholders as well. I think creating this sense of community and belonging really depends on the stakeholders. I mean, what are they looking for? In my experience, working with communities and more so with the younger community like I am now with university sports in particular, I think it's really important to listen to the people, what they want, what the current generation is thinking, what's on their mind, and the community at large. I mean, some communities are, for example, they're looking at green space as a priority. Others, I mean, they're looking at creating more mobility within their cities, active mobility, for example. So it really depends on the sense of the priorities in the area. But with that being said, I really think it's a tailored approach to each community, and there's really not a one size fits all approach.
That physio you were also in charge of defining the strategy, the sustainability strategy, for instance. How
Correct.
was this? How did you develop this? Was part of it also hearing from your community and having their needs in consideration?
Absolutely. So we're just starting on our sustainability journey. So we started with our federation, and it's as a multi-sports international federation. It's really difficult to define a global approach to that'll fit everyone. That'll that people feel comfortable using. So what we did is we started with our headquarters at FISU headquarters here in Switzerland, and all the activities around that. And what we're hoping to do, I mean, we have that base established. What we're working on now is kind of tailoring that approach to our member federations. I mean, you have different countries from the West Coast to all the way to the East Coast of the world, or East Coast of different countries. And from East to West, it's going to be very different. Priorities are different. There's different power dynamics, politics, all this great world we call sports, and all these different factors. Now, it is, although it is a challenge to tailor this approach, there's an opportunity behind it to talk to different people from around the world and really tailor this approach. So that's kind of where we are now. So we've signed up for the UN Sports for Climate Action Framework with hopes of reducing our carbon emissions by 50% by 2030. Taking many steps. It's me sitting behind the computer and doing all the calculations and everything. And I understand it's for a greater cause towards climate change. But with that being said, we want to give the tools to our member federations, our athletes, our students, our university directors and universities to really feel empowered to take action, not only towards climate, but I think our overall goal is to improve well-being on campuses. And this is what we aim to do. And sustainability plays a huge role, which is why we decided to commit to it.
But do you think that these institutions that were not as aware of their commitment to sustainability, do you think that they are now? And what's your approach when going to them and trying to, hey, we have this program, we have this tool for you? How could you convince them that this is a priority for them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they're more receptive to it now, naturally, as well, because it is a quote unquote hot topic right now. But with that being said, we don't want to take away I mean, the novelty of this. I mean, this with that hot topic also comes the work behind it, and I think that's where a lot of federations and I think international federations and our national members and universities are all struggling. Is that there's no guidance, which is why they have not started yet. And with that being said, that's one of my personal goals is organizing the sustainability strategy is really to provide these tools in a simple way, step by step, bullet point by bullet point, what you need to do, how you need to measure it, how you need to report it. And I think this is the key motivation. I mean, when I started working on sustainability here at FISU, there was nothing really laid out for me. And we kind of had to do a best practice research and go through that. So if we can do this for federations and have those best practices already and make ourselves a best practice, I think this is the best way, and it's working so far.
Basically, besides convincing these institutions that this is important, you also have to get them to work together. How do you manage these different instruments and how do you make them understand the importance of collaboration?
Yeah, and like I mentioned, we just started on our sustainability journey, and what we're hoping to do, I mean, not just in sustainability, but as federation, we're really hoping for that cross cultural exchange with access to so many different countries, so many different universities. I think it's really important, and I'll give an example outside of sustainability, and it's an important one because I used to work in the media and communication department, and what we did is developed an internal communication strategy. I helped with developing this, and this was for our member federations to communicate with each other on different initiatives based on media and communication. So, for example, we had 10 of our most active national university sports federations, and we put them together, and it's called a brainstorm group. And we bring them together maybe even now twice a year. And they brainstorm on how to make FISU's media and communication strategy better for FISU, member federations, and the university community at large. So really that cross cultural, I want to say, cross national university sports federation realm is really important to exchange ideas. And this is something we really want to do with our sustainability strategy. This is something we want to do with our gender equality strategy, dual career, all of that. And we really want to improve that. And we really think these connections will be the key to making all this happen.
So basically, you're making people be part of the process itself, which
Exactly.
all comes down to that sense of belonging that you were also talking about. You were part of the Olympic Museum program by the Olympic Committee, which is an amazing initiative to showcase what the Olympic is about and his history and all of that. And you're also involved in physio, you were just saying, in the media strategy and in the media communication, and you had to write a lot of content for this federation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like it's difficult to communicate sports in a way that it's not just about competition, not just about medals, and to really say sport has the way to change sustainability, to change gender equality. How do you communicate sport in such a way that's still engaging but that focus on other topics?
Yeah, and I think it comes back to that emotion aspect. And one of my personal goals actually is to help people find their purpose, but using something I'm passionate about to do this. And whether I touch one person or a million people, or I mean, look at the student community, for example. We have over 200 million students at our disposal to be to be taught, to be given this information to use. So I really think the motivation comes from using these students and this population. But with that being said, I mean, we have to really focus on individual interests as opposed to a global interest. Understanding that not everyone's going to be interested in gender equality, not everyone's going to be interested in climate change, and that's something that we're trying to do here at FISU is bring relevance to the different topics. Again, not just in sustainability, but why is media and communication important? Well, it's the forefront of the organization. So really bringing importance to not only our internal stakeholders, such as our departments and staff and the rest of our what we call FISU family, but also externally to our more of our athlete side, more of our spectator side. We're communicating different initiatives. Why should they care? Why does it matter? And looking at the university community, this is the perfect pool because there's so many passionate young people and rectors as well that are really looking to develop professionally, personally, and they're really looking to do something good. And I really think if we touch them in some way, in some personal way, and have that personal story, this is the way to go. But where I do see the issue is we can't make 2 million different approaches for people. And I mean, obviously this is difficult. So we're doing our best, and we're doing our best with what we have and the resources we have, and we're collaborating with other federations and other organizations to touch on other aspects that we can use to touch the rest of the world.
So basically, also taking your personal example of collaboration and all of these different issues and personalizing it as it was an individual. Do you use personas to define your communication?
We do, yes, and in our communication strategy, we do. I'm not part of that department anymore, but it's something that we kind of rebuilt the department when I was there, and it was good timing. So honestly, it was a really good experience for me because I'd never done that, and I got to find out kind of what my persona was and what my interest was and the type of person I was, and I'm afraid to admit, I'm in that kind of, going that rabbit hole of the Instagram videos and whatnot. Um,
We all
but
are.
I'm the kind of person who likes that instant, content, very short. But hey, there's going to be someone else who likes that longer article, that 3-page thing, or 25-page thesis, whatever. So you really have to tailor your approach in this way.
You said that you had this amazing pool of students and that you're also very eager to educate them. And that's one of your missions as FISU as well. You have FISU Academy and you have a lot of initiatives to educate and to make athletes leaders, basically. Why and how do you make this connection between athletes and sports persons and leaders?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it comes down to our mission. At FISU, we're really looking to enrich the university students and for them to have such a great experience using university sport as a mode, as a way to do this. As you probably know, we have different programs, and one of them being the Dual Career Initiative, and these are for athletes who are also studying, for example. And the dual career program is designed so that athletes who are in university can balance their athletic career and their studies at the same time. So I really think it's not two separate things in our situation, anyways. It's more connected. And you know, you may be saying, I mean, we have all these sports people, these athletes, but what about the people that don't participate in sports? There's a whole university community that's out there. And to be honest, I was very inspired by our CEO actually. We just in passing in a conversation with him. Um, and we were talking about the importance of the Healthy Campus program, and to me, it was in the beginning, it was just another project, a great initiative. But what he said was that this, we have sports well established. We know the benefits of physical activity and sport. We have our sports events and everything, but now we need to focus on those benefits and bring them to the rest of the university campus and university community. And that's what the Healthy Campus Initiative is. 7 domains in health and well-being, nutrition, mental well-being, and all of the different domains. Um, and this really brings kind of that sense of not only social belonging, but that academic research behind why these healthy behaviors are important, and bringing it to the rest of the community who might not be involved in university sport.
Why has it evolved in such a close connection, university and sport?
That's a great question, and I do think it comes down just to the nature of how our society is, for example. And I do think part of it comes from local governments and local authorities. And I'll say this because a lot of universities are under construction. They're always being built. I know my university, I went to the University of British Columbia in Vancouver, Canada, which is where I'm from. And I remember wondering why there's always construction. I mean, they're always building new buildings and there's something fenced off. I realized years later it's for green space. So, I mean, they're building so much infrastructure to assist the health and well being of the students. And a lot of that green space is available to students. And naturally, I do think when they have that space and they have that time and it's promoted in a way that's healthy, students are more likely to go, or more inclined to go in that direction of whatever it is, active mobility. And it could be just doing yoga, stretching in the park, free classes like you mentioned. There's health and well-being in the form of courses and classes on campus. But I think when we have that kind of green space to be active, I think this is important to have those kinds of facilities, because I, to be honest, we're all kids inside and we like to explore, we like to discover. And I think if we're given the tools and the freedom to do whatever we want with those green spaces and whatever, I think we're more inclined to be discovering and more active in that sense.
I love your enthusiasm and your passion with this topic and how important
So
it
I love it.
is. Clearly, but how important it is to develop physical activity and
Yeah.
develop an active lifestyle since we are young. And then I would like also to go a bit into the research behind it, and that you've just mentioned that there's a lot of data behind it. So a lot of what you're doing is obviously backed up by data, and you keep doing research and you keep engaging in different projects, especially Erasmus Plus projects. So how do you manage all this data that you have, and how do you use it?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, first, we're based on university campus. So the university, we're based in Lausanne, Switzerland. That's a city in Switzerland, and we're on campus. We're on the University of Lausanne, and for me, that's such a cool experience. Just being here and getting to eat at the local cafeteria for lunch, and going, just seeing the students walking around, enjoying the lake, which is close by. I think for us that gets us kind of in the mindset of where we want to go and what we're doing. Reminds us of what we're doing on a daily basis. And with that being said, we do collaborate with a lot of universities for more research and development purposes and more development of our programs. For example, uh, you mentioned Erasmus Plus, but I'll go to another example as well. We are developing a virtual sports program, and we did research with the University of Lausanne, and they have researchers working on a survey. Actually, they finished a survey already to determine the link between the habits of university students every day in terms of physical activity and their situation with gaming and virtual sport and all this. What we're hoping to do is bring the benefit of physical activity and create a virtual sports program or event that can use these benefits for university students. So virtual cycling, for example, is a big one. And having those athletes that might not be able to travel for competition in a gym here in Lausanne, in a gymnasium, cycling, looking at a screen, and racing their friends on the other side of the world. So, I mean, this is just one example of how we're using the research and the habits to develop a program that's beneficial for the user, which is the university community. And yeah, like you mentioned, the Erasmus Plus projects, we have a few going on. We have 3 of them. One to do with sports for all, providing opportunity for sports communities, and 2 of them around sustainability in sport, with cycling and creating a green label for universities to certify themselves as green universities.
How do you, sorry, coming back, because I think that's a great idea to that visual sports project
Yeah.
that you were developing. How do the athletes react to that?
So far, I mean, we're still developing it, but we're still kind of in the pilot phase. But what we've been looking at is how students are now. We measured the amount of screen time they have, but this is much different screen time. I mean, they're not messaging or anything. They're really racing or competing. But I think most of us, I might speak for myself here, but we're quite competitive. So I think that alone is quite cool. And even if it's we're looking to create an official championship, a World University Championship, which is one of our entities, sport entities, and we're looking to create a virtual World University Championship for cycling. But with that being said, I think we need to focus on more of the fun aspect and how people can engage. And this goes back to what our CEO said, and this goes back to our healthy campus program: is how do we engage those people that are not practicing elite sport on campus or even sports in general, but need to see those benefits of physical activity, because clearly there is a benefit. So I think incorporating that kind of fun aspect, and this is something we have yet to try with our university students, but it is well received in different parts of the world. And we're also working with our member federations who are doing virtual sports concepts, and they're having a blast. Honestly, you take Brazil for example; they're doing some great stuff with virtual, more esports and virtual sport. But you see the enthusiasm there, and Brazil is on a whole nother level. They know how to party out there, honestly.
Yeah.
So I think we could learn a thing or two from them, especially in the university realm and how university students are. And we're working closely with our member federations to develop this and to make our student community more enthusiastic about these kinds of topics. Yeah.
When we're talking about this project, for instance, we're just not talking about athletes, we're also talking about students, professors, researchers, all of this. How do you get these people to all understand the importance of working together, and how do you bring them together to collaborate and to have fun together, as you were just saying?
Yeah, and if you're talking about the university community, it's a big job. I will say, like I said, I mean, there's 25,000 institutions out there, higher educational institutions, 200 over 200 million students. So it's really hard to engage, and this is where we work with our universities and our member federations. But I will say, the one common thing we have is our common goal, which is to enrich the lives of university students and recognizing that they are tomorrow's leaders. I mean, today's psychology student could be the leading, I don't know, leading astrophysician or something. You never know where they're going to be.
Yeah.
I think that's part of our job, is to not only foster and support them where we can, but I think it's also our job to innovate and inspire them to take action. And a prime example that I've always had in my mind is, a student that's not involved in physical activity in traditional sense with cycling, walking, running, but maybe part of a gardening club or something like that. Gardening is a form of physical activity. They're still getting the benefits of physical activity, right? And it's getting the heart pumping and everything. So I mean, physiologically, it's physical activity. It's classified as the heart rate's elevating and whatever. As you can tell, I study sports science, so this is really cool, putting these two things together and really, you know making them aware of these benefits and working with these universities to define these benefits and these different programs is really what we're trying to do. And I think we've succeeded so far.
But it's great to see that physio as well, and that these institutions are taking a different approach to sport and seeing
Yep.
it as a moralistic thing. But we are still overcoming barriers in people's perception of sports, and this also touches the media. How do you think that we can change the way media portrays sports? Do you have any tips on how we could do that?
Yeah, I'm not a gold medal athlete and an Olympian, and I think in the traditional sense, sport has come to a point where it has a stigma now, and it's been around so long, where you have in order to participate in sport, you have to be an elite athlete. But it all comes down to how we define sport, and this comes back to the academics. How do they define sport? They can give us the facts, they can give us the numbers and figures, and obviously there's a whole debate between sports and physical activity. But at the end of the day, I mean, if your heart's pumping and you're feeling that mental well-being, that sense of belonging, uh, to me, this is a sport in itself. I mean, there's without competition, and I really think it's important to get all the different benefits. Obviously, this is why the Healthy Campus program was developed, to target all these beneficial aspects. And I think if we can engage people in these more active behaviors and even if they don't know they're doing it. I mean, secretly doing it, and we're not tricking anyone, but I mean, it's involving them in some way, making them aware that what they're doing already is already physical activity, already beneficial for their mental health and well-being and nutrition and all this. I think this is the awareness is key, and the education piece, and that's really why we're working with the universities in particular to promote this on campus.
I love that idea that we start by changing people's perception and then we'll go to maybe
It has to.
organizations and to
Yeah.
media and everything. But it starts with the people and it starts with each one of us. You also have an initiative that is working towards that, towards more collaboration and to bringing a different perspective into sport, which is the European Sport Congress. What are your expectations?
This is going to be my first one, and I was really looking into it when some of my colleagues brought it to my attention. I'm from North America. I'm from Canada, born and raised, and this European sports industry and everything around Erasmus Plus in particular for me is really, really, really interesting because we don't have anything like that. And in North America, it's very performance based and very athlete sport focused, and which is great. You definitely need that. But I find in Europe it's more focused on the developmental side. Not to mention that the sport performance is not important in Europe. Of course it is, but the development side is something that was new to me, and it's why I came to do my master's in sports administration and sports management in Europe. And I really think it's something that really drew me in. And looking at the European Sports Congress, there's two things that I find really cool. I mean, one of them is definitely the speaker lineup and the whole broad perspective, not just focusing on sustainability in the green sense, and not just focusing on gender equality, men and women. It's really creating that equality, for example. And I saw there's one session happening on, I think it's active mobility and innovation within mobility, and that's,
Yeah.
to me, that's such an interesting concept to bring to sport in particular. I don't think it's really been researched and touched on all that much. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is just the wording that's been used in the agenda. And I think the word lab, you have workshops, and I've been to so many, I'll be honest, boring conferences,
Mhm.
and not necessarily sports focused, but other conferences as well. And it's always, lecture, lecture, followed by workshop, workshop. But the fact that these are labs, it's written there, labs is sounds already really cool to me and sounds interactive, which I hope it is. So no, this is definitely something I'm looking forward to, and me and my colleagues will be there, and FISU will be well represented. So
Samir, thank you so much for all your great insights and for this great interview.
great, thank you for having me. Like I said, we're always happy to make time for you and the organization, and we're looking forward to seeing you there at the conference.
The European Sport Congress brings together stakeholders from all over Europe to showcase their work, connect with potential partners, and learn from the experts. In this September, and you can find all the information and register at www.sportcongress.eu.